Hey, everybody, welcome to Renaissance Athletic Club podcast. And I'm Todd Johnson. I am your host for this episode, and I think you're going to really enjoy this one. I know I really enjoy speaking to this guy. We had a casual lunch together, and this was actually the origin of the podcast, was trying to connect with some of the people that are in this Southwest Michigan area. Some fantastically talented people doing some really amazing things in the community. And at RAC, we want to be part of that. So I'm going to introduce you to Geoff Heddle,
Todd, how you
just
doing?
like pedal, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
pedal runs who pedal.
I
That's right.
gotcha. And, Jeff is a visual performance specialist, and I was absolutely blown away when we had our conversation. Uh, I learned so many things from you that day.
Yeah,
I said, "This is a great." So thank you very much for taking time out of your schedule to be here with us. It's
my
really
pleasure.
important. I think the people that are listening to us are going to get some really amazing things out of this. So, just tell us about yourself and what you do.
Yeah, sure. No, appreciate it. Thank you for having me. And yeah, you're right. We had a wonderful lunch.
It
So
was very good.
if we should have had the cameras rolling on
I
that day.
I
That's all right.
agree. That would have been a good one.
Uh, so I'm an optometrist. Uh, I'm born and raised in Canada. There's only one school of optometry in Canada. So I actually went down to Indiana University, graduated back in 1998. So
Okay.
yes, I'm that old. But long story short is, as a kid, I played pretty much any and every sport, and even to this day, I'm sports obsessed. So when I was graduating, I didn't want to just sit there and spin the dials all day, every day, which is better, one or two. My idea was I really wanted to look at if I could help an athlete be better. And for me, it wasn't just, hey, let's make sure you're wearing the latest and greatest with contact lenses or anything like that. I just had made enough observations during my adventures in sports where it's like, why is this teammate brilliant in a practice, but absolutely suck during a game? Right. Or why does this person miss the pop fly or something like that? Right. So, guys that seemingly think should be able to execute out there can't. And so that really led me down to, I guess, really is ultimately a rabbit hole into, well, what is vision, right? And in optometry school, I'm sad to say, is we just really think of it as 2020, which is most people do. But
Just want to ask real quick, was anybody at the time really, because it seems that was pretty novel for the time. I don't people really understand, like, at the time, that was pretty novel idea. I mean, now in sports, people really realize that vision is so important and that you can actually improve your visual acuity, and it has a huge impact on sports. And you see baseball players, hockey players, and several people again. But at that time, was there anybody doing that?
there was, but I would say it was, I don't know if I would say fringe, but it just definitely wasn't quote unquote mainstream. And to me, even one of my mentors who I worked with and definitely made a massive impression on how I practice, it was pure happenstance. So this mentor's name was Harry Wax, was just because he's no longer with us. So, but Harry had a practice in the DC area, just down from the Watergate Hotel, right? The
Okay.
great Watergate
Yep.
Hotel. And he was working with a young man who was struggling in school. And as he was helping his visual performance to help the young boy perform better in school, a nice collateral was that his athletic performance was taking off. So this young man's grandfather was so impressed in how the athletic performance had elevated, he just had to know what was going on. So he came and saw Harry Wax. Well, it just so happened this young man's grandfather was Joe Gibbs, who
Oh
was
my gosh.
the legendary
Yeah.
coach of the Redskins at the time,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
And so then that went there. He said, "Well, could you work with professional players?" And Harry's like, yeah." So
Okay.
that was it. And some of Harry's stuff, and particularly back in the day with NFL, like his idea was even assessing if it's an NFL team, if I draft you, I'm giving you a playbook that's this thick, how can you assimilate that information? Right.
Sure.
So no matter what position, when you're in the huddle and the quarterback screams out something like banana XYZ Blue Thunder 42 on two, right? Where do I even go to line up? And when the ball is snapped, which direction am I running? How far do I run before I turn left, turn right, stop, whatever, right? And so you would really look at X's and O's drawn on a page. Now they're all on a tablet, but still you had to assimilate that information and think about it, take it in from a pictorial standpoint. It's not just, hey, is this clear, but pictorially and spatially. And then, like I said, as these moving chess pieces move on the playing field, where do I go in real time? right? And so, for me, every time I'm watching an NFL game and I see the offensive team come out of the huddle and wide receiver goes one way, and then you see the quarterback saying, "Come on, knucklehead, you're supposed to be over here right now,"
Right.
right? It's like, can this
Right.
kid visually think, right?
Oh, okay.
Right?
It's
And
interesting you say visually think,
yes,
correlating the 2 together.
yes, right? Like
Yeah.
visually think. Could you tell someone how to drive to here from the Renaissance Athletic Club?
Right.
Right? How can you give them pictures, use words to give them pictures so that they now know how to move around the world? And so that's more, again, of a visual thinking concept that, again, an athlete. So just like the basketball coach who, as March Madness comes up, they're down by a bucket. They got the possession of the ball. There's 20 seconds. He calls timeout. He's in the huddle and he's taking his dry erase board and he's lining. There's guys that can't look at that and understand where they're supposed to go to line up before the inbound. And then usually the inbounder, claps the ball to start the motion of the pieces to kind of create a screen for some guy to get
Mhm.
open to receive the pass. There's guys that just don't know. And so the idea is even if this is your most successful 3-point shooter, if he can't think about where to go,
So I think a lot of people think that that's more of an innate skill than something you can really truly develop. So that's one of the things we want to ask you is like, how do you improve that level of skill? Because we always hear about, amazing athletes, Todd Williams being able to see the spin of the ball or, guys who just have this incredible amount of visual acuity and how well, obviously Steph Curry, people like that, that
yeah.
obviously have an incredible, reach. How can you improve that with an athlete or anybody looking to improve?
Sure. So it's a great question, and you're absolutely right. If you look at any study done, and I don't know, say measure the basic metrics, like you say, saying 2020, and what's better than 2020 is 2015 or 2010. I mean, most high level athletes see 2010, so they got
Right.
hyper acuity, and then your focus is changing focus in and out like a camera zooming in and out. So, like you said, tracking a ball in at 90 miles an hour,
Right.
things like that. So, you're absolutely right. Athletes basically, if you want to say, have God given talent. So, as you said, hey, that's kind of innate. But for the most part, everything we as humans do, we had to learn to do it, right? So you're working with a client. I mean, does every client say squat the right way or get on the bench right way? Do you work with them on form, right?
Sure.
Foundational posture or balance, or how do you stay in a proper alignment so that you don't hurt yourself or strain a muscle, right? So, or just even holding a pen. The way someone holds a pen is just, again, what they developed as their natural way, or whether it's a wonky golf swing, right? So how they're using their visual system is just again what they developed as what they felt was their natural way. And so during the testing, we're just trying to see is there, I don't know if I'd say slight imperfections, but is there areas where there maybe isn't as much accuracy or efficiency as we want? And then yes, it can be worked on.
So talk about the testing. What kind of testing do you do to find where there's deficiencies and areas that need improvement on that?
Sure. So, there's what I like to think of as the acquisition of information, then the processing, and sorry I say that funny at being a Canadian, sorry, processing of information, and then the actual output, right?
Okay.
So the eyes are what give the brain the most information, right? So
Sure.
just simply, as you said, Ted Williams, as I'm standing in the batter's box, as I see the ball being released from the hand, just watching the trajectory of the ball, hey, that's coming down the middle. I'm going to start swinging, or that's going to be high or low or inside outside, and I'm going to lay off it. Right. So, that acquisition. So, whether it's 2020, whether it's looking at the focusing, or just even pointing your eyes as a team, or even the two eyes for depth perception. Okay. The two eyes the brain wants to make it seem like it's just one. Right?
Okay.
You ever tried to get binoculars and sometimes you try and put the binoculars to your face and you're like, whoa, this is all out of position. And you want to line them up. The brain does that. It takes the two channels and makes them unified, right? And so that sometimes isn't just automatically there because we can point our eyes around. So anyways, that's testing, and then, like I said, the visual thinking side of things, we can do some things like that, but also how they can adapt to space. So one of my favorites we use, and the reason it's favorites because the blows the athletes' minds, and then it's always fun to see who gets frustrated and basically blames it on these glasses for making them look bad, or who digs in. It's like, okay, this is a challenge, right? Which is something you'd want to know as a coach. Like, do I have a player
Absolutely.
that's going to fold the moment things get difficult, or is going to dig in and work at it? But anyways, these lenses are called prism, and prisms just shift things. And so I'll put on glasses that if I was looking at you, what I do is I usually set up like a little bucket or a small trash can, about 10 feet in front of them. And I have it so that the prism basically is shifting the trash can so it looks like it's about 3 or 4 feet to the left. And so
Okay.
I'll tell them, keep looking at that bucket, and I'll give them a bean bag. And I want them to do like that underhand granny style shot
Sure.
basketball.
Yeah.
And I'll try and tell, and they'll see it land about 3 feet to the left. And then they'll do it again. And then they're like, "Okay, what's going on?" Now the key is I gotta tell them to keep looking at the bucket because if they're anyway smart, they'll realize, "Okay, I looked at the bucket, it went to the left 3 feet. I'm gonna look to the right 3 feet, and then I should get there." But I don't want that. That's kind of a that is a clever way of approaching it, but it's low level. I want to figure out what they need to do with their body to adjust it,
Okay.
right? And so I
So
look at
that's where proprioception comes in. So where your body's at in space. So proprioception is just where your body's at in space. And right.
exactly. Yeah,
Okay.
can I feel my body parts in reference, right? Because
Right.
again, the ultimate expression of vision is guiding movement. Right? We use vision to guide our movement,
Absolutely.
right? I was driving here today. Of course, there's different times when I'm following a car. Do I need to read the license plate of that car I'm following? No, but my eyes need to give my brain the appropriate information about the space between me and the car. And then my brain uses that information to decide, I'm going to keep my foot on the gas at this level. Oh, hold on. That space is narrowing. I better take it off a bit. Oh, geez, I better take it off and hit the brake. Right.
Okay.
So that's the idea of guiding movement. Right. Even as I come to an intersection and I go to turn, well, when do I start my turn? Do I start it
Right.
too early and hit the curb, right?
Sure.
Too late and I almost swing into the traffic on the other side, right? So that's vision. That's me judging space and then acting accordingly. But anyway, so coming back to these players with these glasses, that'll tell me how they can adapt to space to the right, and then I can switch it around and see how they adapt to space to the left. So I could tell a player or a coach rather, it's like, listen, this player here, they only adapt to space on the right. So you should really put them, say, on hockey on the left side of the ice, or soccer, the left side of the field, or even a wide receiver. Put them so they're always looking over their right shoulder. You want the playing field to their right.
So you're actually playing to their natural predisposition.
Yeah, yeah,
Wow.
yeah, and now that can be worked on, but it's again, because coaches may say, it's like, "Why doesn't he do well, catching balls over this shoulder?" Or, "Why isn't he good playing on, say, the right side or right wing?" Years ago, I did some work for Western Michigan University, and their coach at the time was, Jeff Blashill, who then went on to coach the Red Wings for a while, and one of his main things is he had 7 defensemen on scholarship, and 6 of the 7 were a right-handed shot. So he had to try and get some to play what they say you're offside, go play on the left side.
Okay.
And so that's what he wanted to see who was better on space, right? And the funny part is the left shot defenseman actually did better on the right side. I'm like, well, Jeff, you got a real kettle of fish here. But so it was just that type of thing. Like you said, what player as a coach, you wanna try and arrange the conditions so the player is gonna be the most successful, right? So
Right.
that's what he's trying to see, where's their strengths, where there's weaknesses, how can I play to their strengths and identify them so that I'm not putting them in a bad situation.
Okay. So once you've identified, say, their weaknesses,
Mhm.
let's call it, their non-dominant side, or for better term.
It's
Yeah.
just even spatial perception.
Okay. Got it. Is there spatial perception on that side? Is there things that you could do with them, Jeff, like to improve that side, to make it a little bit easier for them to shoot from that side or to catch from that side?
Absolutely, actually, and I'd say that's probably going back to kinda tying in your question, "Hey, is how's this long has this been going on for?" Some of the best advances in science these days are around the industry or the science of neuroplasticity.
Mhm.
Now, personally, I hate that term because when I think of plastic, I think of something rigid. I don't think
Right.
of something moldable. So we don't want to call it neural clay, but
Right.
right,
Yeah.
it's like a Play-Doh. It should be
Sure.
remoldable. But that's it. And even a couple years ago, a big book out by Norman Doidge, and it was The Brain That Changes Itself.
Okay.
Right. So based on our experiences, we can rewire our brain. Right? Like, some brains, sure, they come, Yo-Yo Ma, he can play the cello or something like that. I can't play the cello,
Right.
right? Some people can fix mechanics, right? Get an engine and take it apart. I can't fix an engine, right? But you can train yourself to do these things, right? But a lot of it's about having the appropriate lesson at the appropriate time in the appropriate sequence, right?
Okay.
Just like you train an athlete. I bet you're going to train certain muscle groups first and get them stabilized before you do others,
Sure.
right? So, yeah, absolutely. The idea that the brain is just hardwired and frozen is really an archaic perspective. I mean, it is it's a moldable thing, right? And we can do that, and that's really
Obviously
with
easier when you're younger than you're older. We do lose some of our plasticity again and malleability as we get older, but it's not I but also find people that even adapting to new skills, it does take a little bit more effort, but it is possible. It absolutely is possible. So what would be something that you would do? What would be a drill necessarily if I came in and I had an athlete that was I don't even know what the correct term is, deficient towards one side or had a less effective side.
well, yeah. So one that'll come to mind. So here's the easiest one that most people get, and you know, I remember my neighbor was kind of he was surprised by this. So a couple years ago, I was helping out the St. Joe High School baseball team.
Okay.
All right, because my neighbor helps coach there, and so I was doing some testing on some players, and then I put together a little reports for the coach on each player. And there was a player that was playing more the left side of the infield, so let's say shortstop and things
Okay.
like that, and he perceived things as being closer than what they are, right? So if you wanna think about that door that's behind you as 10 feet away, he perceives it as 8. So if a basket is hanging that on that door, he's gonna shoot the ball to only go 8 feet, not the actual 10 feet. So the way he had such compressed space, I said, "This poor kid probably short hops every throw to first." And so when my neighbor read the report, it's like, "Have you seen one of the have him play before?" I'm like, "No, why?" He says, "I read this to my wife, and he just said, 'Hey, what does, let's say Joey usually do?' Oh, he short throws every." So
Right.
even his wife knew from
Right.
watching him.
Right.
We were growing up with the kids, but that was just my testing.
And you identified it from the testing.
Yeah. So one of the exercises I like to do is actually just a simple string. Okay. And I have them hold it to their nose, and I have beads on this string spaced out. And so maybe I put the string, and I've got one that's about 20 feet long, but let's say I'm just holding it 10 feet away, and I've got a bead about 8 feet. The, what they'll do is they look at that bead that's 8 feet away, they'll actually see two strings, and the two strings are really representing their lines of sight. And so as they look at the bead, I'll say, okay, do the two strings just slowly merge so that they'd come to a nice apex right here as that string disappears into the mouth of the bead? Or does it look like the strings meet behind or before? And so in this case, he
And
would,
that's our depth perception.
well, that's his, no, that's
His
his perception of space.
perception of
Yeah,
space.
depth
Okay.
perception is more about the brain using the two eyes together, but it
Okay.
doesn't mean he's not, like I said, contracting or compacting space.
Okay.
So he may see, oh, yeah, no, those strings disappear, right? It's almost like this cord from your microphone. It's like he might think the strings meet here instead of right there at the edge of the microphone, right?
Oh,
Yeah, so he doesn't realize it. So the first part, like anything, is just trying to make them or help them become aware of it, right? Because it's hard
mm.
to change anything unless you have an awareness of what you're doing. So then I start to see, well, what happens if you try to pay attention to your periphery too? Because sometimes we just collapse things down, which is really what a lot of myopia is, right? Nearsightedness.
Sure.
So, can you be aware of periphery with that and what that happens, or even look soft? Because some people, as you know, are so tense. I'm sure you work with clients that seem like they want to
Yeah.
squeeze the barbell and turn it,
Always. Yeah.
turn it to metal shreds in your
Yeah.
hands,
Sure.
right? So there's different things that you start to try to do to help them, like I said, change their behavior, and then you get them to practice it. So it might be fine doing it in a static manner, but then I might try and move the string here. So now, as their eyes are dynamically moving back and forth, or up and down, or even in a circular manner, can they do that there? Right. So we try and start, like I said, stationary and build out from there.
Oh, that's amazing. Because I'm trying. I'm like right now. I'm running through my head with different athletes. When you think about they make perfect throws, perfect throws, perfect throws, and then all of a sudden they get into these weird things. Like with golf would be the yips, and they get into these odd movement patterns that come out of nowhere and just seem so impossible to correct. Do you think that's part of this? Is it a predisposition for that, and that maybe fatigue sets in, or is there other factors that are involved with that?
Well, fatigue can be definitely one. Okay.
Okay.
So as you know, right, if you work with an athlete, like think about, say, a runner that's going to run a marathon. If they don't have an efficient gait of them, good luck trying to run for 3 hours because they're just going to be so tired, right?
Right.
When they're inefficient, it's like 10K, it should be
Mhm.
their limit, right? So you can definitely assess efficiency, which would then help you allow. But what you just touched on actually kind of brings me back to my passion with athletes because there's just some plain and simple that just fold under stress.
Sure.
Okay. So we're just really looking at uh, I don't know if solidity, that's the one that comes to mind, but basically the ability to tolerate stress. And that's something I can test too. I can
Really?
look, oh, yeah, I can say, hey, this is a
And
person that can
what does that
handle, oh, I'm
involve?
stressed. Excuse me. Well, it's just one of my tests, even when they're behind that machine, when you get your eyes
Sure.
examined and you say, which is better, I can put some prisms in
It just
front.
blows me away how much is going on. I've always taken this test, and now I'm, like, really realizing how much information you're gaining from that, you
Well,
know?
sadly, not many optometrists do this.
Right.
Okay. But, small, I guess, if you don't mind, I mean, luckily, I actually had the opportunity to see you just the
Yes,
other day,
absolutely.
right? And
Yeah.
so the way I set it up for the patient, I say is, I've put some unique lenses in front of your eyes. I'm going to start to change them. As I change them, let me know what's going on. Anything that looks or feels different.
Right.
Okay, so the part of the proprioception. So the first one, I'm basically trying to crank their eyes in like crazy. And inward is a very stressful posture with your eyes.
Yes.
So basically, I'm saying, okay, I'm going to put you in a stressful situation. How long are you going to hang in there before you say, I can't do it anymore or don't want to? Okay,
Okay.
because there's a difference, right?
Right.
And then I'll try and pull it back and see, well, how well will they recover while under stress?
Okay.
Okay. And then the next one, I go into stress recovery. Right. So again, those are valuable it's bits of information, not only to the player, but more even to the coach. Right. So even if we think about baseball and I've got a pitcher, right? And I'm coming in the ninth inning when say there's a guy on base and there's one out and we need to get these
Mhm.
guys out to say make the save and win the game, right? If that person can't handle stress, they're not going to come in and perform well. But hopefully they can handle the stress. Conversely, stress recovery is kind of like that pinch of salt over the shoulder. I'm on to the next one, right? So if you're a starting pitcher and you give up a home run in the first inning, are you perseverating on that? Like mentally, you're in the bench the next 3 innings, like just like, oh God, I gave up that home run. Why did I throw it to that pitch? I shouldn't have thrown that pitch. And it's like, dude, let it go. You got to
Right.
move on to the next hitter, right? And there's some people that can't. So I do get into really behavioral characteristics or traits. Like I can delve into that. And again, those can be all worked on, but those are just bits of information I can glean. And with all due respect, if you don't mind, if I share
No,
that,
absolutely, please.
for you, and I never did because we were kind of running short on time in
Yeah.
the office, you actually will stay engaged in stress for a long period of time. And that's not bad, but it sometimes can be because we can then have a tendency to almost go too far when we really should say, "Hey, I need to stop for my own self-preservation."
Right.
Right? But you're a hard charger, so you're good and you'll get things done and you'll be like, "No, throw more on my plate, throw more on my plate, throw more. I can handle it," and stuff like that. So,
Is
the
that something that you could develop over time, or do you think, or is it there's a certain innate ability to that and then also can be enhanced?
both and
Both
both.
both
Yeah,
both
right.
and
Check,
both
check,
out
and check.
checking.
Yeah.
Okay,
Is there
gotcha.
is there
Yeah.
a D, all of the above on
Yeah,
that?
absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
Uh,
Yeah, and that it's I'm just thinking about so many it's so awesome too that you're speaking about this because we had I don't know if you know, we had, Kevin Guzzo on here earlier,
yeah, yeah,
and
yeah. Kevin and
he's,
I were talking
yeah,
recently.
so
Yeah.
and that's just fantastic that these 2 things are correlating so well together because, but talk about now the connection too between, and basically I would say the physiological portion of this and then the, psychological portion of this and how they intermix.
Well, so, physiologically, I don't know how geeked out you want me to get here.
Well, I'm very geekish
All
now,
right. All right.
so I don't know if
I
we're
don't
gonna
know if our
entertain people
audience
or
is
not, but
geeky,
yeah,
but I
or
mean,
yeah,
really, we're talking autonomic nervous system, right?
right,
That's the fight or flight system.
right.
And the visual system is one of only six systems in our body that get signals from both the sympathetic and parasympathetic side of the
And
autonomic nervous system.
parasympathetic is so for the audience, parasympathetic is what slows you down, and sympathetic system is what fires you up.
Yeah, the sympathetic is the fight or flight. So it's
Right,
when it's game time, like the blood pressure's going, the
right,
airways open up, the heart's pumping, right? I got
right,
adrenaline going and I'm
right,
jacked. And your body is not trying to digest food now or anything like that. The blood
right,
is out in the muscles and you're ready to run faster than you
right,
ever could or run away from someone or whatever, right? Or tackle someone or whatever. And then the parasympathetic now is like, okay, work or engagement time's over. It's time to rest, relax, repair, rejuvenate. The autonomics are just what you'll see then the people that collapse. So in in a and I guess here's the example I would give, looking at how people handle pressure.
okay,
you and I are having a nice conversation here, right? I'm under the bright lights here, under the camera and
Right.
stuff like that, and it's
This
fun.
will be seen by millions.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, right? Yeah, exactly. Hopefully, I'm getting the Academy Award here, right? But, for some people, they're gonna get in here oh, right, it's like
Right.
they can't get out a coherent sentence, right? It's like, "Dude, I just had coffee with you a half hour ago.
Right.
We had a great conversation," right? And the guy's
Right.
pitting out his shirt and
Right.
everything's there. It's not like he learned how to or forgot how to talk, but now that the sympathetic system is activated, his performance has just gone down.
Okay.
Right? So that's the same that can happen with the visual system. I mean, physiologically, what happens is the eyes move out, our focusing system shuts off, okay? Our eyes widen, okay, but the pupils dilate to let more light in and things like that. So unless you can keep that balanced, you're gonna be toast, right? So that's the person that can't perform in the big game, right? Can't handle the stress. So again,
Right.
relaying it back to your findings that I remember from the other day, it's like you're fine in a championship game. Your performance isn't gonna dip, right? You can handle the stress, and your performance is going to maintain top-notch level.
Now if I only had talent, that's the only thing that kept me back from
Yeah,
that.
there you go.
So let me ask you a selfish question. So
Yeah.
I know I work a lot with not only with my athletes, but with everyday people on breathing because it
Mm.
has such a fine connection to our parasympathetic system. We can actually trick ourselves into feeling calm just by changing our breathing pattern. Is there something with the visual system that we can do, like a takeaway for us that we could do with our visual system to help calm you down? Is there little tricks that you have or I
Yeah.
would say tricks is the correct word, but
No, 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 it is a
or
trick, though,
method.
because sometimes our brain wants to play tricks on us, right?
Right.
So, in a way, you're kinda tying into some visualization, right?
Okay.
Visualization, so even the idea, "Hey, think about your happy place," right? Where's your Zen place? "Oh, this is me lying on the beach down in Bermuda," or something like that, or, Bali or whatever, right?
Right.
Bora Bora, right? And it's just the serene color of the water and things like that, so, that can bring some tranquility there. But visually, the main thing I tell my patients to do is get engaged in the here and now. So I don't know, there's a book by Eckhart Tolle, I don't know if you ever heard, but The Power of Now.
Yes.
But most anxiety is when you're thinking about something in the past or what could potentially happen in the future, right? So you're all nervous about the big game. So even sitting on the bench or the sideline or whatever, but do something visually. So even if you're in the dugout at a baseball diamond, follow the chalk line from home plate out to first base or follow the arch of the grass in the dirt or something like that. But when you're actually looking and seeing things and paying attention to what you're seeing, you're in the here and now. So it's going to help your brain come back. So, if I'm working with say, a college basketball team and they're going to the Final Four and they're often in these big, like the Astrodome or whatever, and things like that. But by the way, that's why you'll see a lot of shooting percentages go down because there's no actual visual reference for them that they play in smaller gyms and so they can help organize their space better. But when the space is that big and finding the rim and the backboard, really, most Final Fours, if you take a look historically, have a really decreased shooting
So
percentage.
it's
But
not just the pressure of the moment, it's more of the
now the
change in the
visual
background,
environment has changed.
visual
Yeah.
environment has
So
changed
so and
dramatically.
and think about baseball diamonds. They put all those tarps in center
Sure.
field so that all batters have a consistent, because otherwise you could have fans out there with mirrors doing reflection or
Right.
different colors and stuff like that. So you can just see how background visual stuff can impact. But anyways, so give them something to look at, even if it's a banner up at the roof, and trace it, and even take a deep breath, like you said, to help release the tension and things like that. So absolutely giving them a visual task. So one of my friends used to actually work with a couple of tennis players. And before points, when you see people sometimes messing with the strings and the rackets, they're actually with their eyes tracing the strings up and down.
I've actually seen them do that,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And that's them just helping coming into the here and now. Don't worry about the point that's ahead because it's championship point or anything like that. Just boom. And don't forget about the last point because your opponent just aced you or anything like that. Let me just come back into the here and now.
So actually just by taking a distracting view I wanna say distracting view, but another view, an alternative view of what's going on and, like, focusing on that gives you a
Well,
chance to recenter?
I think it's more about being cognizant about what you're thinking on.
Gotcha.
Right?
Okay.
Like you said, am I thinking about, "Oh god, I just got aced. What a knucklehead. Make sure I pick up the ball coming off the racket better," or, "I swung and missed at a pitch," right? It's like, "Oh, stay off the curveball. I can't," right? We get chatting in our heads, and more times than not, the voice that's talking to us in their head is not complimentary. So to stop, kind of giving that voice power or whatever, just start doing something visually, and usually the chatter itself stops,
S
and I'm here in the here and now again.
so the visual is more of a refocusing and
Yeah.
letting that
I
go.
mean, this is just think about it. When you're driving, what's the danger of cell phones?
Distraction.
Takes your eyes off the road.
Right.
Right? Takes your eyes off the road, right? And or sometimes we just start thinking of, and we just realize, "Oh my god, I almost got in an accident," or "That car in front of me just stopped," or whatever, right? So we stop visually being in the here and now, and we realize, "God, I don't know where the hell I was there a second ago, but I just started daydreaming," and so again, just becoming more visually present helps your mind be present and help.
So one of the things I definitely want to ask you about is I know you've said this before to me, and I was really intrigued by it, was the fact that you can use your visual state to change your physical state. So loosen tighter muscles, change the your different physiological things about your body using vision.
Yeah, I think what you're referring to there, and
And I
please correct me if I'm wrong.
said that very poorly. I'm sorry.
No,
So
no, no, it's all right. But it's when light hits the retina, it goes to about 11 different known pathways so far to the areas of the brain. One of these pathways deals with the body dealing with light with circadian rhythms.
okay,
Right? So again, like parasympathetic, sympathetic. When daylight comes up, that red glow in the morning, red is an aggressive color, right? It's rage, it's anger. All right. So that's getting the body going. When we see the sunlight come up and see that red sky in the morning, that's to get us activated. And then when the sun goes down, those purpley blue, violet, right, that's more of calming down, right? If you look at any psychic, they always wear purple colors and stuff like that.
interesting.
But so that's just to wind us down and help move us back into parasympathetic. And as that sunlight goes
Can
down,
colors actually affect that if
oh,
you're
yeah.
looking?
Oh, yeah.
Really?
Oh, and that's what I mean. So I can use
Yeah.
colored glasses on people to influence their autonomic state because that'll actually help the brain. So again, just like the body becoming in synchronize with the daylight, the circadian rhythms, right?
Sure.
Because when the sunlight goes down, my body should start to produce melatonin, and melatonin is what helps us go to sleep. Conversely, our body needs to shut off melatonin production to get up and
Which is
get
why we need
activated in
to
the
get
morning.
off the computer and the phone
The
and
blue light
blue light
from
and
the
phone.
computer and
Right.
phone fools us to think it's daylight
Daylight.
hours, right? So that's exactly the pathway I'm talking about, and that's also seasonal affect disorder here, right, in
Sh
Southwest Michigan.
The gray blanket.
It's yeah, exactly. We're
Yeah.
talking about the gray blanket, right?
Yeah.
So we don't get serotonin production. So, anyways, again, that's partly influencing the autonomic nervous system or other hormones. So, yes, I can use specific wavelengths of light to help restore health or maintain health or reestablish a healthier autonomic nervous system, which then my visual system is going to function better.
Amazing. Um, I came from the world of auto racing. I used to had the good fortune working on Champ Car Safety and then Indy Racing League safety team for a few years. And I knew that during the season they would do pre-testing and then testing. Following accidents, drivers often would present as they were ready to go and they're perfect. Of course, they wanted very competitive. Can you talk about how, with head injury, how that affects the vision and how vision can give you an idea if somebody has had a head injury?
Yeah, so I'm actually just training a young man right now who's played football and rugby here at St. Joe, and same thing. So there's a test that, and I always pronounce it poorly, but it's the King Devic, and it you can Google it easily.
Sure.
And King and then
King
Devic,
Devic.
Devick.
Okay.
But there's YouTubes out there about the way the University of Miami uses this on their football team.
Okay.
It's been kind of gold stamped with Mayo Clinic, and original testing or their protocols were all actually working with MMA fighters.
Okay.
And so actually in the corner between rounds, they were actually doing this test. And all it is a card and reading some numbers. Because just to make your eyes move ding, 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 to read numbers or read words, there's about 13 different centers in your brain that are needed to activate to make beautiful eye movements. And we call those eye movements saccades because there's
Saccades.
two types
Okay.
of eye movements. The
Okay.
jumping from one to another is a saccade, and the pursuit is the following. But anyways, like I said, 13 different different centers in our brain to make accurate eye movements. So, you know, um,
So it's more than just pupillary response. So if the pupils are dilated or constricted, is not as so much as the issue.
no, I like pupil. That's my easiest way to watch the autonomic nervous system,
Okay.
right? Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. And that's what police officers even do,
Sure.
right? So,
Mhm.
and shout out for optometry profession because we were the one that educated
All right.
police officers on that. But yeah, so you can just watch that performance. And usually there's about a 20% reduction in that. But the key is, like you said, you want preseason
So having a
data.
having a baseline to work off of.
yes, and that's the biggest problem. So, I've worked with the trainer here and for the football team, and I'm usually on the sidelines for most games, and he says, "I kind of keep trying to tell the coach I want to get this
Sure.
pre-competition data in here
Right.
so that we know." And the nice part is that test is done inside of 2 minutes, and it can be done anywhere. Right, you can do it right on a sideline. They've got versions on your iPad now, but I'm old school. Like I said, I
Sure.
graduated in '98, so I got this old, crinkly one that's spiral bound or
I
whatever.
got you.
But so the portability is great. The cost is so, efficient. But
And
yes, you can do
is it a
those.
time issue that you're looking at? Is it a time versus I read
Yes.
this in X amount of time and now
Yep.
with the concussion I can't read it in the same amount of time?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, yeah, so I just had to follow up the other day, and he took 20 seconds off his time because you should be probably reading the 3 cards in about 60 seconds for a high school age, and when he had just come in from getting his concussion, he was up at 81 seconds,
Wow.
and, yeah, you just hear him, like I said, almost that you stutter and things like
Sure.
that and kinda getting lost and, and even I mentioned that string with the bead, like, coming in as I bring the bead in, it's like, "Oh, one of the strings has disappeared," which is the brain saying, "I can't use both eyes anymore." So, yeah, the concussion stuff is really, really huge, for us right now, and I see get a lot of workman's comp cases,
Sure.
for stuff like
You
that.
would think that would almost become a standard in the industry in sports, hopefully at some point, where the pre-testing would happen. I have a great way of identifying. Obviously, it's not something that's really shouldn't be cost prohibitive or restrictive.
No, correct, especially that test. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's correct. Absolute peanuts to do, for each one. I don't know. I think, like I said, the electronic version, I don't know how much it would cost for a year, whatever, but running that on 100 football players, that if it costs you maybe $20 a year to have the subscription, I mean,
Oh,
that's
yeah.
peanuts per player, right? And like I said, the portability and the speed. I mean, a lot of these tests are like, okay, well, what city are you in? Do you remember the score? I mean, those are just so subjective.
Right.
So take the subjective nature, get some hard objective data in front of you there, and you can see and stuff like that. I think that's a little more
That's
valuable.
awesome. That's really amazing information. The one last thing I want to finish up with is how do you think a normal person, say just weekend warrior, somebody trying to improve their own health, some of the things that they could do with their vision to improve their health?
Well, one, get away from the screens. uh, two, even going outside and getting a walk. Right? Like, so natural sunlight hitting the retina, like just so beneficial. But you're teaching your eyes to get out, relax. But even as you go for a walk, trying to do things like open your peripheral vision. So, it's almost like a yoga person, right? You got your yoga dristi, right? Your position of anchoring your eyes, but what are you aware of in your periphery? So as you walk down the sidewalk, when can you notice that mailbox going by, or when that, parked car in that driveway? How much can you use a look soft, see the whole field, right? Because if I'm, someone running around, whether it's, I played pickup hockey this morning and stuff like that, and trying to watch the other 9 skaters on the ice so I don't bump into them or know where to pass. You got to see over a large panoramic, right? It's like driving over to O'Hare or Chicago,
Sure.
your own stomping grounds. You're
Right.
in 5 lanes of traffic. You don't want to just see the car in the
Right.
lane you're in. You want to see it all so that you can make the appropriate decision, right? So just even learning how to use your eyes in a look soft manner, and then see, like I said, in a global manner, and take in as much information as
I
possible.
don't want to project, but is the fact that we look at the screens, we're constantly looking at small screens, does that start to affect our ability to look at things in a larger scale and individual scale?
Yeah, most definitely. Most definitely. I mean, at the sounding really kooky. We're designed to be a hunter and gatherer.
Oh,
Right? Physiologically, right?
right.
And
I
if
agree.
we're designed to be a hunter and gatherer. So if I'm out in the field, where do you think my eyes are pointing?
Yeah.
Right? So, most eye movements both go left or right or up or down, but to stare up close, they're pulling in. That's just an abnormal movement. And the focusing muscle that, usually goes when we get past 40, like you or I,
Right.
right? You need our reading glasses. We're designed, that muscle is its most relaxed natural state when it's looking far away. It's not there. It has to contract and work up close. And for some people, they can't. And so the system is under such stress, it breaks down. So that's actually usually the genesis of most nearsightedness. So, just look at the amount of population that's wearing glasses and contacts these days. I mean, it's abnormal to see people now without glasses for distance.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's funny, I stole this from somebody else, and I wish I could give credit to them, but they said, we now live in a 24-hour world, but we were never designed to be 24-hour creatures.
Oh,
So going out in the natural light and going out and exposing those things, and like you said, evolution has put us in as hunters and gatherers, and we're living in a world that's really not matching up with that. And some of
Becoming more sedentary, right?
oh my
I mean,
gosh, yes.
with all due respect, it's great, but now we have to go to the gym to get our exercise,
Right.
right? As opposed to just doing it during our normal daily routine, right? So
Absolutely.
we have to do that to offset the fact of, we're not getting enough movement for health benefits just by our normal daily routines, right?
Yeah.
So luckily we got people like you to keep us healthy.
Well, and it's so good to hear things like simply like walking out and taking a walk. You tell people like what an unbelievable health benefit that is. Well, there's physiology behind it. So it's not just, it seems like a nice thing to say. It's
Yeah.
actually there's a real physiology behind
More
why you're
than just
doing it.
Zen like, right?
One and Zen like, yeah, which is not a bad thing either.
No.
So all these things really tied together. And our bodies are really truly amazing, especially brain and a visual system. If you really stop to think about it, it's one of its most amazing gifts. And
Well, I tell patients that basically our brain is our master computer. Okay. Our brain receives information about the world via our five senses, and you try living without your vision.
oh,
You tell me what you can do. I mean, you can't do squat,
yes.
right? So the visual system is pretty much an underlying component of everything we do, but we just don't think about it. Right. So you again, just trying to write my name on the line on the check. Like how many kids, when they start to handwrite, it's like there's no space between the words. It's just one run on word because they just don't know how to visually guide their hand to space them out or something like that. Right. Or they write uphill or downhill and things like that. Those are just visual things, right? Or can't catch the ball that are tossed to them or whatever. These are all visual things. We just don't think of it. And like I said, the limitation is mostly just 20/20.
I think we've got some amazing takeaways for everybody, and definitely we do this again very, very shortly.
Cheers, man.
Thank you so much, Jeff. I
Yeah.
really appreciate being here, and I think we've got some great information on it. And is there information we want to put out there for people to contact you?
My last name is spelled Heddle, Heddle. And so, visual training is like
Right,
this. So
right.
VT is the short part. So
Mhm.
heddlevt.com. I've got
Okay,
websites. So,
right.
there's some stuff out there. I probably need to work on that and make it
Yeah.
look super shiny and everything like that.
Well, we're
But
gonna put everything in the information on the
yeah,
podcast too to let people know how to contact you.
appreciate it.
It's fantastic, and like I said, we could probably do this another time
Yeah,
soon
my
because
pleasure. Let me know.
I really appreciate. There's so much more great information about there.
Thanks
Thanks
for
so
having
much,
me.
Jeff. Thanks
Cheers.
again.
Yeah.